Well, the Trump administration is sending the criminal illegal, saying it's about protecting Americans. To break it all down, I want to bring in Horace Cooper, Project 21 chairman. Horace, as always, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. So what do you make of the decisive action by this administration? It feels like a win for law and order and sends a clear message, right, to those who threaten our safety.
It's no doubt that America underwent for the prior 4 years a crime wave that we hadn't seen since the 1970s. And in every way possible, the so-called blue states and the federal government sent the message that there would be no accountability. In less than 2 months, this administration is reversing that message and making it very, very clear that if you engage in wanton acts of violence, this administration will not sit back, and you can't even run to the blue states and think that you can escape accountability.
No, so, before we took you live, we talked about this federal judge who's trying to stop this because, and the White House is pushing back hard, saying a single judge cannot dictate national security. Why does anyone want criminal illegals here in our country?
This is a policy issue that we might say in Texas, you don't want to break your axe on.
Right.
On what scenario would you say that I am going to go to the mat to fight for the rights of cutthroats, killers, and child rapists? There could, in fact, be some really amazing and exceptional individuals somewhere in the United States who have an immigration violation that perhaps you want to make an issue about. These people are not that group. I'm a little bit reminded of Tim McVeigh. Tim McVeigh brutally spearheaded, oversaw the murder of hundreds of Americans in Oklahoma City with the Oklahoma City bombing. He was convicted and he was given the federal death penalty. As the time for his date arrived, activist groups all across the country filed these lawsuits to protect him. They said, well, if he wears an orange jumpsuit, people will think he looks guilty. They might argue, oh, well, he was shackled during his trial and that made him look guilty. They did every single thing they could to make the claim that this person, this terrible, odious, evil individual was someone that we should fight for. And they didn't do all of these cases at one time. They kept using them to delay. Finally, after the Supreme Court 3 times had said, no, there is no merit to these arguments, the Supreme Court issued an order. There will be no more claims supported in any federal court, and this execution will proceed. This is where you get when you're taking wild, killing gang members that are more akin to the Barbary Pirates than they are to a first aid organization. When you stand up for them, you run the risk, if you're a lower court judge or if you're just one of these ACLU wild activists, that you get an order from the court shutting you down completely.
That's an interesting point you made there. And then, along the same lines, we're also seeing, the same tough stance with Mahmoud Khalil, the former Columbia student who led the anti-American group on campus. That group hell-bent on tearing down Western civilization. He allegedly promoted Hamas propaganda. By the way, he was here on a visa, then married an American, has a green card. Horace, what do you make of the radical threats hiding in our universities and then those activist groups standing up to protect him?
Again, this is wild. This is not something that I would have expected to see on my bingo card. First of all, why are these people in a federal district court with their dispute? Congress has set up a process to address issues involving their status. There are special immigration courts. So I'm really troubled both in the case where a federal judge thinks he can order flights to be returned, and in this case, why aren't we letting the immigration court make its findings? We're told on the right that we need to return to regular order. Well, regular order is not the ACLU or some other high-paid attorney rushes into district court to get a TRO. Regular order is that you follow the actual jurisdictional process. Ultimately, these judges are diminishing the reputation and the value of the judiciary. We don't want an Andrew Jackson moment where it said, you decided this, Supreme Court, you figure out how to enforce it. What we want is all of the branches of government, all three, able to operate. Please stop interfering with the lawful power of the executive branch to protect Americans from dangers and protect America from individuals who have lied to come to America and have no legal right to stay here.
Well, you probably heard about this too. Homeland Security also deporting a Brown University doctor and assistant professor, Dr. Rasha Alawi. She attended the funeral, for our viewers who don't know this, the funeral of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, who was responsible for the deaths of Americans. So she was here on a visa. Reports say she admitted to going to the funeral. She's 34 years old. She was detained at Boston Logan International Airport last week while coming back from a trip from Lebanon. Then she was sent back. Horace, it makes you wonder, how did she feel so comfortable attending the funeral, leaving this country, going to Lebanon, coming back? Who knows how many of her there are in this country, considering, we've had our borders open for the last couple of years?
Well, as I said, our former president sent a message. There is no accountability. There will be no sanction. There will be no punishment. And some of the worst actors possible exploited that. To this day, we do not know who are some of the people that crossed our borders who are engaged in activities that are outright terrorism, people that might be able to use explosives, people that might be able to engage in assassination. We have to have at our border the ability to ascertain who individuals are. And if your idea of coming to America on a visa, telling us that you want to honor and be a part of this great nation, also means in your spare time, you're going to hang out at the funerals for terrorists that threaten Americans and America, well, you've got another thing to think about, because our president isn't going to tolerate that.
Yeah, you're right. It just makes you wonder, again, like I said, how did she feel so comfortable attending the funeral and then coming back? And when she was questioned, apparently by CBP, she said, well, I don't agree with, I agree, I align with him, religiously, not politically.
Okay. First of all, she also deleted a bunch of photos, but she didn't realize they were still able to be retrieved on her phone, showing a far more engaged and involved relationship with an enemy of the United States, dead or alive. Coming to the United States is a privilege. By the way, international law recognizes this. If you're an American and you attempt to go to another country, guess what? They don't have to honor the First Amendment. They don't have to honor the right for you to have an attorney. Every country has a fundamental right to decide who will come to these United States. Shame on former President Biden for signaling that the worst of the worst could come to America and they would be welcomed. There's a new sheriff in town, and he's not going to allow this anymore.
You're absolutely right. It just blows my mind to see these activists standing up for people who clearly tell us exactly what they think. Exactly what they think. They hate us.
Well, they can hate us all they want. They can't do it from inside the United States. And it's a shame. It's a shame that groups like the ACLU are defending them, and it's going to really require going all the way to the Supreme Court so that we can get a fundamental finding that's been true for the entire existence of the United States. Threats, individuals designated as threats are not allowed in the U.S.
Point blank. End of the story. Horace Cooper, as always, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.